Hard Truths Episode 18, The Truth About Ultron, and why Ultron might be the most interesting villain from all the Marvel movies?
How could you be worthy? You're all killers.
So guys, over the years and through all the Marvel movies I've seen and loved, I think that one of the most underrated and often overlooked villains is actually Ultron. He's basically the evil or devil on the shoulder of Tony Stark, but he also happens to say a lot of deep, powerful, truthful statements. And so, as you guys have heard me talk about in the past, when it comes to a lot of different Hollywood movies, they often contain some powerful truths in this effort to do some revelation of the method or also predictive programming. And of course, the main focus in Ultron is this idea of AI and putting AI into an actual body or life form. We're also going to be talking about the whole synchronicity and possible singularity. Ultron also makes a lot of powerful statements critiquing the US always needing to be in war, which I actually fully agree with. So we're back with Hard Truths episode 18. It's been a minute since I did one of these deep dive Hard Truths singular focus episodes, and this is actually, I believe, the first one since making the separate YouTube channel for the Rabbit Hole Roundup and Truther content. So in today's episode, I'm going to be dissecting the movie Avengers Age of Ultron, essentially from start to finish. Can you guys handle the truth? Let's find out now.
I want the truth!
The truth? You want the truth?
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jared Weiss. If you guys didn't know, that must mean now subscribe to the channel so you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button, be sure to leave a like, drop a comment, let me know your thoughts on this video. Follow me on every platform, and also if you guys haven't done so already, make sure to buy the book, Fight Through It, by Jared Weiss. All the links to buy the book are on my website, jaredryanweiss.com. That's JaredRyanWeiss.com. I've been getting great feedback, so let's keep going and helping people. Let's dive right into this powerful episode. I'm going to be going part by part, scene by scene, essentially. Well, like, dissecting all my favorite scenes from the movie and what I believe to be the most powerful ones. So first off, to start off the movie, you see Iron Man sends these quote-unquote rescue bots into Sokovia, which is supposed to be this Eastern European country that's been falling apart, largely actually due to the acts of the Avengers, trying to quote-unquote save the world. But what happens when Iron Man sends these rescue bots in there? The rescue bots are claiming to be saving the people, claiming to be there to help them, but then what happens?
Well, we know Strucker's not going to worry about civilian casualties. Send in the Iron Legion.
Which reminds me of what happens when the US goes into all these other countries and starts wars claiming to be spreading democracy, such as like what happened with Iraq when the US was claiming to be spreading democracy by overthrowing the government and basically destroying everything in there in the name of stopping terrorism and finding weapons of mass destruction, which were never found. Next up, when Iron Man actually goes into one of these buildings in Sokovia, which is supposed to be like this occult-like building, I think, where he's looking to find all these secrets of Hydra. But when he's in this building, he actually gets the idea for Ultron. I think that it may have actually been when Wanda was messing with his mind and making him see his vision, seeing his destiny. He sees Ultron, he sees like this whole AI takeover. But where is this idea actually coming from? A lot of it is actually coming from Hydra, I believe. Just like how the Nazi scientists came over to America as part of the whole Operation Paperclip and gave some of our scientists some of these sinister ideas.
These were not easy questions to answer.
Some of these experiments, such as like MK Ultra, came out of this. Operation Artichoke. NASA was created as a result of this, which is all about deception.
Oh, the deception!
Very interesting parallel, if you ask me. And then what happens right after this? Right after Iron Man gets the idea for Ultron from Hydra and takes the technology back to the Avengers home base, he says to Bruce, meet the competition. Not a human mind, but like actually an artificial intelligence mind.
Meet the competition. You have to guess. What's it look like?
It's thinking. It's not a human mind. They're like neurons firing. Artificial intelligence.
Could this be the minds of AI that gets spoken about in our own culture? And this whole idea of the fourth industrial revolution, which is about merging humans with technology. And once again, is this similar to Elon Musk's whole idea of merging humans with technology, creating this idea of Neuralink, which is going to be claim to help people, claim to do all these wonderful things, but then what could go wrong with something like that? If a technology like that gets into the wrong hands, you could manipulate people's thoughts, manipulate people's dreams.
When does a perceptual schematic become consciousness? When does a difference engine become the search for truth? When does a personality simulation become the bitter moat of a soul?
You could punish people for wrong speak or wrong think, as what happens in George Orwell's 1984, which I know is a very dark thought, but like, this is why it's so important to be aware of these potential downfalls, and aware of what's going on in our world, and aware of the predictive programming that's coming from movies. And as you guys may have heard me talk about in my last Hard Truths video, Tony Stark is very similar to Elon Musk, and I actually fully believe the character of Tony Stark is actually based on Elon Musk. And I have many reasons for that. Furthermore, as I spoke about in the last video once again, I think Ultron versus Jarvis is representative of this battle of good versus evil, or God versus Satan. Ultron tries to destroy Jarvis and tries to wipe him out, but it's actually this weird AI thing, but like, some people actually believe that AI has actually already taken over and is actually running things in our world right now, and that the whole singularity has already happened. Or some people even believe like our realm is actually a simulation, which would mean technology, which would mean AI could actually be running our realm. But going along the lines of God versus Satan, what does Jarvis say as soon as he comes into this life form and his current being? He says,
I'm not Ultron. I'm not Jarvis. I am.
I am, and then he pauses for a long time, so he just says I am, which, if you guys look up the meaning of I am, this phrase I am in Hebrew essentially indicates the omnipresent nature of God, and is actually another translation for God's name, I believe, in the Bible of Yahweh. And taking that further, it essentially means I am and I will be, and I will always be. So if you guys follow my reasoning behind why Jarvis versus Ultron is this battle of God versus Satan, you have Jarvis who claims to be on the side of life and Ultron isn't.
I am on the side of life. Ultron isn't.
Ultron actually believes more in the flawed nature of humans, so Ultron actually believes maybe this whole fallen angel type of figure. He fell from heaven, like he was actually cast out of heaven, as was Satan, if you follow the whole biblical reference. So Ultron is actually trying to corrupt humans, whereas Jarvis is trying to save them. So like, I don't think it was an accident that Jarvis starts things off simply by saying I am. And if you don't believe that like this movie contains all these biblical references, what does Bruce Banner say when Thor says that Tony's actually right? He says, oh, this is definitely the end times.
Stark is right.
Oh, it's definitely the end times.
Which is a reference to biblical prophecy, which I have my own thoughts on some of that stuff, and the whole idea of Book of Revelations being manipulated, as Elle Stone spoke about when she came on my podcast. But like, it's definitely not a stretch to claim that like this movie has a lot of biblical references. Next up, you have Ultron finally waking up when he actually becomes this semi-conscious being, I guess you'd say, and he doesn't realize where he is or what he is.
What is this? What is this, please?
You are Ultron, a global peacekeeping initiative designed by Mr. Stark.
This feels wrong.
So could this be like a demon finding a body? AKA the concept that Paul Saab spoke about when he came on my podcast about how demons are actually the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, who are looking for a body to inhabit, hence the whole dangers behind the AI revolution and putting these things into bodies. So then Ultron literally puts himself into a body with all of his evil intentions. Furthermore, another truth from the movie that I found interesting is how Tony says he sees a suit of armor around the world, which in theory sounds really good, but what could that actually mean in practice? A police state, militarized zone, but what's the issue with that? Oftentimes you're actually creating the problems that like you're claiming to prevent. So you're trying to tell people and convince them that like in order for them to be safe, they have to be watched at all times, they have to prevent crimes before they happen. But what actually happens when you're in this hyper paranoid state and some people aren't allowed to express their ideas? You have speech being censored, you have ideas being censored. Does that actually lead to less violence or more violence and less safety? As the famous quote goes, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Or any society that will give up a little liberty to gain a little security will deserve neither and lose both. And furthermore, what does Ultron say next going forward? Ultron calls all the Avengers killers.
How could you be worthy? You're all killers.
Which obviously sounds ironic, especially because they're supposed to be superheroes. But how many people in their paths have they actually murdered as a result of their actions to keep people safe? but going down Ultron's sickening thoughts. So once again, the Avengers aren't perfect necessarily. They definitely do a lot of bad things, and at one point it even turns into this idea of how the Avengers essentially turned into S.H.I.E.L.D., which are the very people who they were actually trying to avoid becoming, especially because S.H.I.E.L.D. got compromised by Hydra.
That makes sense to me.
What do you see happening in our government these days? I mean, you have all these assassinations, you have our government going into countries, killing leaders, wiping out people, taking resources in the name of spreading democracy and spreading freedom. But how does that actually add up? But then Ultron starts to sound like the evil side of Tony, and similar to how all of our current world leaders sound. We start talking about creating peace in our time, which starts to sound like Agenda 2030.
I'm a peacekeeping program created to help the Avengers. I don't get it. The mission.
Peace in our time. Peace in our time.
That is too much.
And he starts talking about all these other initiatives. He says, how is humanity saved if it's not allowed to evolve? You want peace, but you don't want the world to change, which isn't necessarily wrong, but like, it's definitely a twisted way of looking at the world. Then he says, I had strings, but now I'm free. No strings are attached to me, or something like that.
I had strings, but now I'm free. There are no strings on me.
It's like he's uploading AI into the world consciousness, which is signifying this concept. And how does this relate to our current world? If we're talking about predictive programming, what is everyone using these days to get their ideas, or to ask questions to? You have Siri, you have ChatGPT, you have Gemini. Where are we getting our information from? So much of it is coming from AI, which, as I've spoken about in the past, I don't think AI is necessarily all bad. A lot of it depends on how it's being used, the person using it, and what information the people who are entering into it, what their intentions actually are. But we definitely have to be very careful when it comes to being overly trusting of AI, outsourcing all of our knowledge and all of our power to it, because when that happens, then humans start to become obsolete, which is exactly what the people at the top want for all of us peasants. But we're so powerful, we're all divinely created by God in his image, and so we can't be giving up those things for the purposes of convenience and for this temporary safety, which ultimately could potentially lead to humans' downfall. Moving right along, why does Tony build something that could kill them, but claim that like they need this? Is this like the same thing as people saying that merging humans with technology is inevitable and it has to happen?
I am inevitable.
Or is it like the people who create the problems, then fix them, only halfway, claiming that like they were just preparing for them, i.e., ISIS, which is created by our own government, Hamas, which, once again, Netanyahu was funding before the whole event happened, and then what ends up happening? This gives the powerful people in our country an excuse to go over there, wipe out people, wipe out resources, for no reason at all, other than our government was creating problems by claiming to be fixing them. It's this whole inverted reality of, in order to spread freedom, you have to unalive people, or to be healthy, you have to take poison, or indoctrination is seen as real knowledge. But if we stop believing all the inversions, and we take back our own power, we stop believing that we're limited, we could change the vibration of our realm, we can make so many powerful changes, and we could create heaven on earth, I believe, as I've said in the past. But as Ultron says, everyone creates the things that they dread.
Everyone creates the thing they dread.
Which is actually very true in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of us put our consciousness and put our focus and our energy onto things like we don't want, so then we actually end up manifesting those exact things into our lives. He says that men of peace create engines of war.
Men of peace create engines of war.
Which is very true, once again, with the US and with a lot of governments all over the world. I mean, NATO is supposed to be stopping wars, but why are there so many new wars? Invaders create Avengers.
Invaders create Avengers.
And then he says like another very interesting statement. He says, people create other little people or babies designed to supplant them or to help them end or die.
People create smaller people, children, designed to supplant them, to help them end.
Which is obviously a very sinister way of looking at it. And once again, if he is one of these evil people, he must be part of the Depop agenda, because he sees humans as failing and he doesn't see them as having any hope.
Oh, so there's still hope. I don't want hope. Hope is killing me.
Next up, Ultron says another very powerful thing when he says the church is in the exact center of the city. This way everyone can be equally close to God.
You know this church is in the exact center of the city. The elders decreed it so that everyone could be equally close to God. I like that. The geometry of belief.
What does this sound a lot like? It's the idea of Tartaria, having cities being built on ley lines. It's the idea of Tartarian energy and Orgone energy, using the power of the ether and the power of prayer, which, if any of you have looked into Tartaria, or any of these old world buildings and whatnot, they were all designed a specific way to harness the energy of the ether and to use free energy for healing purposes and to power up the cities. So could this be a nod to Tartaria and some of these old world buildings? I don't doubt it, actually. And if Sokovia is based on one of these old world buildings or old world cities with fantastic architecture which is made in sacred geometry, uses the powers of the ether and free energy and powers of prayer, and sees these big buildings as healing centers, this actually made me think of something else. Could Wakanda actually be based on one of these old world cities? Wakanda forever! Or could it be based on Atlantis? Could it be based on one of these super advanced civilizations that uses free energy, or in their case vibranium, and has all these massive healing centers? So that might be a topic for another video, or for another day, but I did want to bring that up as a potential possibility that Wakanda may actually be based on a past advanced civilization and a past city. It may not be this fully mythical place. Moving along, Ultron also says there's no man in charge when he's talking to the twins, or the two siblings who've been experimented on. Quicksilver and Wanda, I'm pretty sure their names are.
There is no man in charge.
But could this be this idea of AI taking over in our world, and could all the politicians and whatnot be listening to them? Or could it be one of these demonic entities? Like how I'm always saying, it's definitely a spiritual war that we're in. It's not just about money, especially because the people at the top have as much money as they want, and as we see, they can print as much money as they want. There's definitely a spiritual war going on, and could it be fallen angels versus God? Could it be God versus Satan? Could it be demonic entities versus angelic beings? I think that there's definitely something more powerful that's beyond us that's going on at the top, and we just can't see it because we're only able to see certain light spectrums, so we can't actually see these spiritual beings. But I believe that they're definitely at play here, and that's why so much of what happens in our world can't be explained simply by, oh, they're just about money.
Hello, I like money.
Because if they were just about money, then how would that explain how they have all the money in the world, but they still don't seem to be satisfied? There has to be people who are working for higher entities. So I think Ultron's referring to this when he says there is no man in charge. Then another really powerful truth that Ultron says is Captain America, God's most righteous man, who can't physically live without a war.
Captain America, God's righteous man, pretending you could live without a war.
I can't physically throw up in my mouth?
Which I think is a blatant attack on the US and how the US and the whole war machine always has to get fed, which is why the whole military-industrial complex is all about stirring up new wars, sending our money abroad, whether it be to Ukraine, whether it be to Israel, whether it be to any of these other places. When meanwhile, we have homeless people and people struggling here, but you're sending all that money overseas to benefit causes that don't actually benefit us here. And Captain America also says, every time people try to win a war before it starts, innocent people die, which is very true. I mean, that's the whole reason why every time our government goes into one of these countries and takes out one of their leaders, claiming to be doing it to spread freedom, what ends up happening? Innocent people end up dying. Another powerful point in the movie is when Iron Man actually gets shown his future, as do all the other Avengers, by Wanda, but they all think that they're being brainwashed, but they're actually being shown their destiny and their future.
Done the whole mind control thing.
Not a fan.
We'll celebrate after the graduation ceremony.
What if I fail?
Are you ready for our dance?
They see everything. They see you leading us to hell.
Which they ultimately end up creating. I mean, think about this. So Asgard ends up getting destroyed, and Thor's people end up having to leave that place. Iron Man ends up fulfilling his destiny when it comes to creating Ultron and Jarvis and creating this whole AI revolution. And all the other characters also get shown their destinies, which they ultimately fulfill. Some more powerful points that Ultron makes is when he says, so typical of humans, they scratch the surface and everything to look within. which I think is a very powerful point because so many of us have so much power, but yet we only scratch the surface of how much power we actually possess. A lot of us aren't willing to go through enough failures, enough trial and error to become all that we're capable of being. We scratch the surface, but then we never look within to take things one step further. And maybe this isn't what Ultron was referring to, but like this is what I'm referring to. This is what I think is a very powerful reference and a powerful statement. And finally, to finish things up, we have some more very powerful biblical references from Ultron. So Ultron says, humans will have every chance to improve, and if not, ask Noah.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
Referring to the flood in Noah's Ark. Then Ultron says, when the earth starts to settle, God throws a stone at it.
When the earth starts to settle, God throws a stone at it. And believe me, he's winding up.
Sounding a lot like Satan being upset at God for casting him out of heaven. And Wanda says, Ultron can't tell the difference between saving the world and destroying it. Where do you think he gets that? Referring to Tony Stark. But could this also be how the devil was actually originally one of God's angels, but then when he disobeyed God, he then got cast out of heaven? And then Ultron says, you rise only to fall.
You rise only to fall.
Kind of like Satan being a fallen angel. And then his most powerful line is, when the dust settles, the only thing living on this earth will be metal.
When the dust settles, the only thing living in this world will be metal.
Now, that sounds to me like someone is trying to wipe out God's creation and trying to take it all and change into AI. Now, as I've said in the past, I think that because of this concept of duality, everything isn't all good or all bad. Everything has aspects of both within it. So like technology can be great if in the right hands and with the right intentions and the right purposes. Same thing with AI, same thing with any of the tools that we have out there. So it's up to us to transform these things into good. For instance, social media. It was designed to be this tool to take over the human consciousness, to get us away from the truth, and to fully indoctrinate us because everyone has a phone in their hands at all times. But what have we seen in the past few years? It's actually backfired on the people in power because we've actually used it to spread truth, to connect with others. But like, once again, not everyone does this properly. A lot of people follow negative accounts, and then the human consciousness ends up suffering as a result. So be mindful of everything. Be mindful of how you're using technology. Be mindful of what AI could potentially do to us. But like, also understand that not all these things have to be used for bad. They can all be used for good, and we can ingratiate them into our culture and into our lifestyles for positive purposes, to help us build, to help us construct our thought patterns for beneficial purposes and for beneficial uses. So anyways, guys, I hope you guys found this video interesting. Let me know any of your thoughts. Let me know if I missed anything. I will catch you guys in the next video. Stay thinking critically for yourselves. Stay positive. Stay hustling. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Be sure to drop a like, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.